Welcome to the 16th season of the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our panel includes Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com, Jacob Cowker of WTAJ Sports, and a special guest nitwit each week. The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By Your Rehab Choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday.
Hey there, folks. I'm Jacob Cowker, alongside a couple of our usual nitwits. We've got Neil Riddell from the Altoona Mirror, as well as Mark Brennan from FightOnState.com. And in the far chair, a special guest this week. I don't know, can we call you a nitwit? I mean, is that all right?
Careful now.
Not yet.
Careful.
All right, we've got Penn State Athletic Director Sandy Barbour. Sandy, thanks for taking the time to come down here.
My pleasure.
And, you know, since we've got you here, we're going to do a little bit different. You know, we usually kind of weigh in on the game and things like that. We're just going to pepper you with questions for the next half hour.
You're just going to weigh in on me, right?
We will start with the fact that you have been here now basically for half a semester. Let's put it that way. What has been the biggest challenge getting settled into Penn State?
Well, I mean, the challenge for me personally is you arrive at a new institution, a new place. You come clear across the country to the middle of, or the beginning of, the football season for Penn State, to lead an athletic program of 31 programs, the middle of August. All the planning's been done. Everything's getting ready to go. You know, so part of it was really good is, as I said, all the planning's been done. You know, I get to come in and start to organize things in a fashion that fit me, but at the same time not the burden of having to take on everything at once. But the fabulous part has been getting to meet people, getting to understand Penn State, understand the area, what's important to people, what's so special about this university, and that's all been fabulous.
So is the first year, and you've been through, had a couple previous stops, is it more of a listening, learning, education, and at least initially before you go in and form a lot of opinions?
Well, absolutely. From a forming opinions standpoint, it's we want to listen, particularly with a place like Penn State. I mean, I know that I inherited a very, very good program. Nobody needed anybody to ride in here with a cape, and there's not a lot that's or really anything that's broken. Do we have opportunities? Are there things we can do better, or opportunities we can take advantage of? Of course, absolutely. But it's you listen, you learn, you figure out how to take advantage of those opportunities. But you don't get jobs like these without being a doer, and there's some things we're going to get on pretty quickly.
With so many new faces, a new president, a new football coach who they're by nature very visible, a new AD. How long do you think it's going to take for everybody to, I don't want to say feel comfortable, because that's not, I think you guys already seem pretty comfortable with each other, but kind of get to know the way everybody's kind of working? Because I think part of any great organization is having a feel for not only what you can do, but everybody else's strengths and weaknesses.
Well, and that's the key right there is the team. It's just, for me, it's just like a head coach. Building the team, talking about what the vision is, what are the priorities, where are we going, how are we going to get there. But you've mentioned a really critical element, and that's Eric Barron's leadership, and that Eric Barron and James Franklin and Sandy Barbour on the same page, noses all headed in the same direction, tucked in, ready to go. And that, I think, we found pretty quickly. Eric was looking for that. In his athletic director through the search process. He already had a good relationship with James, and then it pretty quickly became the three of us around football issues, which are going to touch almost everything we do.
Yeah, just kind of dovetailing on that. A lot of people don't know who the athletic director is until there's some sort of an issue with the football program. Yeah. And how do you transition yourself into that role of managing football? Who are the people that you rely on, and some of your past backgrounds with football? Because let's face it, that's why we have a show.
to talk about Penn State football, I love it. I grew up a football fan. Saturdays were college football and Sundays were the NFL with my dad, and so I've always been hugely interested in football, and since getting into college athletics, the place that it occupies, and so certainly what we do on a daily basis, and all of our financial plans have an underpinning around football, obviously. So as I said, I grew up with it. I've always been at institutions that had football. Obviously, there are some great institutions across the country that do not, or that are maybe basketball schools. I've always been at places that relied pretty heavily on the football side. I had the opportunity as a very, very young AD, actually like 2 or 3 months in, to make a coaching change. I hired a guy by the name of Tommy Bowden, this is at Tulane. We'd been 2-9 the previous year. We went 7-4 the first year, 11-0 the second year, and Tommy left for Clemson. But early on as an AD, I was pressed into action there. But again, it's all of your financial plans, one of the things I talk about in terms of the value of intercollegiate athletics is that we are a connection, we're a gateway for our alumni, for other interested parties to connect back to the institution. And certainly, if you're talking about 107,000 people, if you're talking about a facility that holds 107,000, that's a huge connector back to campus. And so football needs to be vibrant and healthy.
One last question before we head to our first break here. You talk about the fact that it is a financial driver and the 107,000 capacity, and people are wondering what it takes to get it that week in, week out. Have you come up with plans, ideas? I know that is a question that I'm sure you're asked a lot, but have you come up with ways to continue to build that fan base that comes week in, week out in the stadium?
So I think that's an athletic director's, that's as a profession right now, that's our biggest challenge. Obviously football schools, football drives the financial model, and our challenges or our competition so much anymore is not necessarily what's going on in that region, or I come from the Bay Area where obviously you got 2 NFL teams, you got 2 Major League Baseball teams, you got all of that. It's our competition now is the 65-inch HD television and the sofa and the restroom that's within 10 feet, right? So those are the kinds of things that we have to think about, particularly when you've got a capacity of a stadium of 107,000. That's we all know that's about as big as it gets in college athletics right now. So we're going to spend a lot of time, and it's not I've come up with this in 6 weeks, or it's going to take, number one, it's going to take time to get the right answer, and then it's going to need constant care and feeding about what's important to our fans, what's important to those that care about Penn State, why do they want to connect, and what is it that makes them feel good about connecting, and how do we create that? And that's something we're going to have to pay attention to every day, all day, every year.
All right, well, we're through our first segment here, and you talk about football as being the financial driver. That's for a lot of other sports, 31 at Penn State. We'll take a look at some of those and your thoughts on those, as well as some more football, of course. That's what the NitWits is mostly about. So we'll have all of that when we come back with more Sandy Barbour.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need.
The NitWits, a weekly look at the Nittany Lions.
Welcome back, and if you are just joining us, we have a special episode of the NitWits with a special guest, Penn State Athletic Director Sandy Barbour. Again, thanks for taking the time, and we talked football mostly in segment number one. Let's switch to some of these 30 other sports that Penn State has, especially these fall sports. You know, everybody's ranked in the top 10, it seems like. And has anything surprised you as far as the successes or what stands out about these coaches or student athletes?
You know, that's an interesting question because having been in this industry for 34 years now, Penn State's always had a reputation for really talented, committed coaches, and so I knew of that. A couple of coaches I actually have some history with. Coqueluche Washington and I were at Notre Dame at the same time. Rob Cooper and I were at Tulane at the same time. But I have to say, having now worked together for 8 weeks, which is not a long time, but it's even more than people tell you. I mean, talk about fit for Penn State. This university has done a great job of attracting. Now, the university itself obviously draws a lot of talent, but the university has done a great job of attracting and recruiting and hiring great fit coaches who turn around and then do the most important thing you want them to do, which is recruit right, fit, talented student athletes, and then coach them up and help them grow, and a lot of success. And we're seeing it this fall.
The tough question, though, is it going to be viable long-term to maintain that sort of broad-based athletic program? I know at Cal some programs were cut. I'm hitting you with a tough one here. But with all the financial issues in college sports, is it going to be viable moving forward to have that many?
Well, I think that's a decision that Penn State has made and will continue to support. And that's the answer is yes, because it matters that a large number of student athletes have an opportunity to get an intercollegiate athletics experience, life-changing. You know, I talk a lot about intercollegiate athletics as part of the learning laboratory, the educational part of these young people's lives. People want to talk about it some as extracurricular. It's not extracurricular, it's co-curricular. It's part of what they learn in their educational process. And you know, those of us who've participated in intercollegiate athletics know that it was such a huge influence on our lives and the future success. But back to the point of your question, institutions have to decide that what a robust, diverse, intercollegiate athletic program with a large number of offerings, a large number of sports, that what that brings to the university is worthwhile and it's worth investing in. And Penn State is one of the few programs, the few intercollegiate athletic programs that could support something like that without institutional support, without institutional funds, that's not what's going to happen at Penn State. So I know it was part of the discussion that Eric and I had in the process of the athletic director search, and I certainly support it as something that's really, really valuable, not only to the student athletes that are participating, but to the campus.
And just to piggyback on that, you celebrated the 50th anniversary of the women's sports a couple of weeks ago, and they have such a rich history. How much of that attracted you to Penn State, and what's your feeling just collectively about the women's sports program?
Well, what attracted me to Penn State from a competitive standpoint was the overall excellence. You look at the national championships last year, you look at the national championships, let's say in the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever time period you want to look at, and whether it's men's or women's, just a program of excellence. I've said very publicly, there's, one of our goals is to win the Learfield Directors Cup. That signifies overall excellence. Stanford's owned it for I think it's like 22 years in a row, and I believe that Penn State can certainly do that. I mean, we had I believe it was a 4th place finish last year, which is outstanding. But we'd like to get after the cup itself. It's absolutely that was part of the process for me. But on the women's side, in terms of Penn State's commitment to women's programs, like a lot of other things, Penn State was a leader. I said it a number of times that weekend during the celebration. Penn State stood up, embraced women's athletics, embraced opportunities for women to compete in intercollegiate athletics before they had to, before they were mandated, really before Title IX, and frankly before it was cool.
Could you address, kind of going back to the whole football end of it, predating you, there was a lot of negative talk about football culture at Penn State, and yet football has basically paid the bill for a lot of the sports, most of the sports, men's, women's, and just how important football has been and will continue to be in keeping 30 varsity sports, men's, women's, that sort of thing.
Well, the revenue we're able to produce because of a vibrant, successful football program obviously will be critical to that. But one of the other reasons I wanted to come to Penn State was just because football is the key from a financial standpoint doesn't mean that the expectations about their behavior or culture or academic success are any different than any other student on our campus. So I don't think that changes anything. And in terms of criticism about a football culture, if you will, I'll tell you as an outsider, that's hopefully becoming an insider, but an outsider's perspective, Penn State has always done it the right way in terms of the academic emphasis, in terms of behavior. That doesn't mean that we were without incident or without criticism or moments that could be criticized. And absolutely, of course, there are things that we need to change or get better at. But I'll tell you what, I will hold Penn State up today, Penn State yesterday, Penn State 5 years ago, Penn State 10 years ago, whatever time frame you want to use, and hold it up to a standard in terms of a standard bearer in intercollegiate athletics, and Penn State rises to the top.
Well, that takes us into some other bigger issues as well. We'll hit on some of those when we come back as far as Big Ten, the NCAA, some larger issues in the world of college sports, and we've got more with Sandy Barbour when we return here on the NitWits.
The NitWits are brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life.
I'm James Franklin, head football coach, Penn State University, and you're watching the NitWits.
Well, thanks so much for bringing us back. We've got his boss with us today, AD Sandy Barbour, and we want to get into some bigger picture issues, Big Ten, NCAA, so many things out there, player safety, the way athletes are compensated, all of those issues. Is there one of those that stands out as the one that you see as being the definitive one to tackle at this point in time?
Wow, that's a good question. I think the need for autonomy, because we've seen it, the issue around full cost of attendance and student athletes having access to a scholarship that includes full cost of attendance is imperative. And we've tried to get that done through the regular legislative channels, literally, I would say, for the close to the past 10 years and haven't been able to. And so the Autonomy 5 was necessary for that, if nothing else. So I believe you will see that happen, or some form of that happen, in January. I do believe there's some things around healthcare and being able, really defining what we are able to do, which should be a pretty broad spectrum. And then maybe some other things around scholarships and access to education. Frankly, after that, I think we need to have the discipline not to use the autonomy, not to go crazy. There's so many things I think that we have the possibility of doing that just don't fit in the academy, to me. So it'll be interesting to see how far we take it.
Sandy, when you were at Cal, some things came out during that time about the grad rates, and could you address that and what kind of structure you see at Penn State to assure that the student athletes have, and they've always performed
Yeah.
very well here.
Penn State has an immaculate record from an academic standpoint, and I certainly intend to maintain that, if not even see what we can do about increasing it. You know, the Cal situation was disturbing from the standpoint of there were some difficulties particularly in football. The department itself overall performed really, really well. So obviously the football situation gave everyone a black eye. And it was really a matter of taking the eye off the ball. Maybe taking a few shortcuts in the name of competing, trying to win, and my role in that is not reining it in quicker. And as I told Eric in the interview process, I've learned a lot from that, and Penn State now, I said at the time, whoever my next employer is, will benefit from that. So it's a matter of the structure at Penn State and Cal, very similar, academic services, academic support outside of intercollegiate athletics. Obviously you've got a faculty rep who's keeping an eye on things like that. But for me, it's a matter of every day having it be top of the list, and if any program or any situation starts to look like they're headed down the right road, you got to rein them back in really, really quickly.
Player, student athlete safety, obviously big in the news right now. I won't drill you with a question because I don't think it would be fair on anything in particular, but do you feel the proper safeguards are in place at Penn State that if an athlete's injured, it's a doctor's decision rather than a coach's decision?
Well, that issue right there, absolute. I asked that question day one. It's something that's really, really important to me, but it's important to Penn State and always has been. But I asked that absolute question. I spoke to our trainers and our support staff, and they always want to know, is the AD gonna back us if things get a little tight here? And I said before the question ever got asked, you need to know, I believe you are the absolute professionals. You're the ones making the decisions. Not me, not any coach, not any coaching staff member. So I feel very good about where we are, but you always take moments like this to examine, to ask questions, to talk to each other, to kind of test the premise a little bit, and I feel very good about the hands that our young people are in terms of their safety and welfare.
All right, we'll be right back. More NitWits on the way.
The NitWits are brought to you by the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
All right, welcome back. This has been a very special episode of the NitWits. We want to say thank you very much to Penn State Director of Athletics Sandy Barbour for stopping by and taking some time to discuss all sorts of issues, from football to other sports to bigger issues as well. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. I hope I get invited back.
Thank you, Sandy.
Well,
Be careful what you ask
exactly.
for.
Exactly. We're going to book you right now.
There's another bye in a couple weeks.
Well, because we have a special guest, we're not going to make our usual on-air predictions, but you can find those online. We'll get our predictions for Penn State versus Michigan up there. And we'll see you next time on the NitWits.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By Your Rehab Choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. and by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State Game Day every Friday. You can also see the Nitwits on AltoonaMirror.com. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.